production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Friday, January 28th, and I'm John Sankovic, the President and CEO of the Ohio Aerospace Institute. We're proud to partner with the City Club and pleased to introduce our forum today, Pushing Boundaries and Breaking Barriers for the Benefit of All. Today's forum is part of the City Club Local Heroes series. The series is designed to ensure that champions living and working here in Northeast Ohio have a leading role in our continuing community dialogue. The speakers represent a cross-section of the brightest thinkers and doers whose hard work changes the way we view ourselves and view our community. It's my privilege to be part of this today and to introduce Dr. Marla Pérez-Davis, Director of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, John H. Glenn Research Center. When Dr. Marla Pérez-Davis was growing up in Puerto Rico, there were some who doubted she could even become an engineer. Today, Dr. Perez-Davis is the first Puerto Rican-born woman to serve as the director of any NASA center, and the second woman to lead Cleveland's NASA Glenn Research Center. Dr. Perez-Davis oversees more than 3,200 scientists, engineers in both civil servants and support contractor roles, and manages an annual budget of more than $900 million. Under her leadership, NASA Glenn continues to push the boundaries of innovation in space and aeronautics research by working to meet milestones on propulsion and power elements with the Artemis missions, where NASA will land the first woman and the first person of color on the moon. The center also oversees innovations in electric propulsion to change the future of aviation, where the skies of tomorrow will look very different than they do today. Moderating the conversation today is Dr. Kirsten Ellenbogen, President and CEO of the Great Lakes Science Center. As in every City Club forum, you can participate with your questions. Please text them to 330-541-5794. Again, that's 330-541-5794. You can also tweet them to @TheCityClub. We'll try to work all of them in. Members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming Dr. Kirsten Ellenbogen and Dr. Marla Pérez-Davis.
Well, Marla, I know you and I are talking regularly. Our teams talk constantly, and usually it's because there's something new happening. It's always busy. I have to say, lately, it's exponential. There's so much to talk about these days. It's been amazing.
Well, first of all, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation, and more than anything, thank you for your continuous partnership. As you said, the conversations start with, our partners, and you have been an outstanding partner. And yes, we are so excited about everything that is going on, and you have been part of that excitement. We have great things going on here in Ohio, but let me tell you a little bit about the latest, right?
Yeah.
So as you know, we have a long history of space exploration, and we have 60 years of knowing how. This is the exciting thing. Right now with Artemis, which is how we call our going back to the moon, the excitement is around a couple of things. The first one is about going back to the moon. We haven't been there since Apollo. So that's number one, right? So we have a number of generations that haven't seen a landing. They have seen pictures, but they haven't experienced that. And to tell you the truth, from my view, I just remember a black and white image of some landing. I didn't have any clue about what was going on or how difficult or complex was that mission. More than my mom said, sit down, watch. This is important, okay? Yes, and that's what I did. But you reflect on those things, and those are images that stick with you. So going back to where we are right now, so 60 years, right? Exploration, NASA Glenn being part of that. And I'm telling you, when John was talking about the first woman on the moon, the first person of color, we're also rewriting history, right? Artemis 1, back to the moon. This time to stay is not just about flags and footprints, it's about going there in a way that is achievable and is sustainable. And the sustainable part, that's where we play big. That's where NASA Glenn here in Cleveland, Ohio, have a strong role.
I think so many people forget this, right? Like we keep saying, oh, we're going back to the moon. You don't think that when you go to the moon, you have to go through Cleveland. I don't know that anyone
that's
realizes
right.
this.
That is so
Right?
true.
Right.
That is so true.
Yeah.
The history, you go back, it has to go through Cleveland. From the spacecraft, right? In this case, there's the spacecraft, what it takes us to get there. Then once we are on the moon and orbiting the moon, what is happening there? We are also involved in that. So I will talk a little bit about, first, the spacecraft. What are we doing in Orion and the Space Launch System? Then we will talk about the outpost, the gateway. What are we doing for the outpost and how NASA Glenn plays there? And then once we get there, right, we learn the technologies are working, then we land, and that's the sustainable part. We land on the moon, we gotta have, the power system, we have to have the materials, we have to have resources. And then we do the exploration. And in all those phases, going back, it's passed through Ohio to get there. From developing the technologies to the test, to helping integrate and manage those activities.
You said gateway, and I get so familiar with this, but I don't know that everybody has really experienced why going to the moon is so different this time. Like, what's gateway?
Okay, so let's start with how we're gonna get there, right? So Artemis 1 is the program where we're gonna get there. The first thing is, the spacecraft. So we have been, leading with our partners. Again, it goes back to partners. It's not about just NASA. It's us, the industry and the international partners. So NASA Glenn has a role in the Orion, which is, for the spacecraft. That spacecraft is going to be, adapt or, connected with the Space Launch System. Space Launch System, SLS, is the biggest and more powerful. Think about the Statue of Liberty. It's taller than the Statue of Liberty. That's 322 feet. So that's really tall, right? So NASA Glenn is working to develop and help with the design and the development of the adapter. We call it the universal adapter. And that's what hooked the spacecraft and the launch vehicle. So right now, and that's for Artemis 4. Artemis 1, which is the first mission that we are gonna use the spacecraft that NASA Glenn has been working with the European Space Agency, and which was tested here at the Sandusky facility, the Armstrong test facility, Neil Armstrong test facility.
And the spacecraft is really, for everyone who grew up with the shuttle system, this is going to be remarkably familiar, taking us back to the 70s, right?
Yes,
I mean, it's very different.
It's different, but there's some similarities. Yeah. So the first thing is the Orion spacecraft. That is what we call the service module. And it's really the powerhouse. It has the propulsion, the power, the water, all the elements that are needed for, the astronaut. So that's the capsule that was, tested here on, at the Sandusky facility. So right now, that is at the Kennedy Space Center, and is being connected and is ready with the Space Launch System. So we are going to have, the first mission is on crew, no astronaut. We're going to be 3 weeks, around the moon. We are going to prove the technologies to make sure everything is good, and then we're coming back. So that's Artemis 1. So that is, we're working all the details or the reviews, everything is going on now, right now. We will have, what we call it dress rehearsal in the next month, and that will determine when we would set up the time for the launch. So watch that launch because it's early spring, and we are so excited about that mission. So that's the first step, Artemis 1. Then we have Artemis 2, which is we go around the moon. So that's when we're talking about, having the astronaut. So, and then Artemis 3, which is then, we are gonna land on the moon. And Artemis 4 will be when we stay on the moon sustainable. So Gateway is the outpost, meaning once we are in the orbit of the moon, that's the place where the astronauts are gonna be back and forth between the, around the moon and going to the surface. Mm-hmm. So we have the responsibility for the first element, the power and propulsion element for that gateway. And the gateway is the habitat and then, the power and propulsion element, which really allows for power. And the propulsion is to be able to explore the whole moon. When we went the first time, we were pretty much, constrained for the power that we have, which was in the, sun areas of, the light part of the moon. This time we can explore all the moon because we can move around to do that exploration. A lot of excitement about
right,
that.
And you haven't even fully gotten into all the elements. So many of these pieces connect in to what's going on in Northeast Ohio. Mm-hmm. I think of this and how we're helping get all this happen on the moon. That's got to have a lot of impact here back in Northeast Ohio, right? And I don't know that everyone appreciates the footprint, the economic impact that NASA Glenn Research Center really has here in our community.
Yes, so when we talk about the technologies, right, the technologies is not only about exploring space, the deep space exploration. Those technologies find a place in our home planet. For example, we talk about power. If we have to have, power system that really operate in the moon for the astronaut to be able to live and also to work because they're doing exploration and discovery and all kind of science experiment, that knowledge is transferred here on the Earth to make, for example, power grids more efficient. So the knowledge come here. So back to the economic impact, I want to pull out some numbers because I am afraid that if I don't do my, look at my numbers, I may put some of these numbers erroneous.
Well, they're big numbers.
Yes, they're big numbers.
Amazing.
They're big numbers. So there's two types of studies that we have conducted in the past to look at the economic impact, just exactly what you're asking. So one was conducted by the agency, and it was about the Moon and Mars, program impact, economic impact on the nation. Especially, we found out that there's a couple of things. The NASA federal budget is approximately $24 billion, generate more than $64 billion in total economic output annually, and support more than 300,000 jobs nationwide. So that's nationwide. If you go to Ohio, just the Moon and Mars, program, Ohio is ranked in the top 10 states that benefit from the NASA efforts, which include $2.3 billion for the state economy, $302 million of which come directly from the agency's Moon and Mars exploration effort. If we look, I talk a lot about Artemis, right? So Ohio is home of more than 120 companies and suppliers that are contributing to Artemis. And that's just the Moon and Mars. We haven't talked even about aeronautics and all the other programs that we have in the agency. So we also conduct a yearly study with the Cleveland State University. And we look exactly what is happening here in the state of Ohio, especially Northeast Ohio. So I am very proud to say that last full study, our economic impact exceeded $1.6 billion in Northeast Ohio. It supported more than 7,000 jobs and increasing labor income by $505 million and generated nearly $118 million in local, state, and federal taxes. So when you look at those numbers and hear those numbers, right, this is only the beginning. As we start, really working and really understanding how to live in another world, in this case, the moon, and then with the idea that, our objective is to get to Mars, right? The reason why we go to the moon is not just because, exploration, is because that is the place that we can test our technologies and make sure that we have everything that we need to go to Mars. So it is we're going to do the proof of technologies. Those technologies are going to find a way to planet Earth. So that means those numbers are just the beginning. As I said, we don't do things by ourselves. It's in partnership with American industry, it's with our international partners. Imagine, in the future where the economy is also impacted by what we do solely on the moon. What kind of materials we can, generate, what kind of system, what kind of technologies, knowledge is transferred to products or to, like we have at the entrance of the center, for those of you that have been at NASA, Glenn, for the benefit of all. It's not just for space exploration, it's for the benefit of all.
I have like 3 new exhibit ideas in my head already, listening to you talk for the Science Center. But yeah, I know. Well, I know we will. But I have to say, you've rattled off these numbers. They're incredible, right? You are talking about taking us not just to the moon, but to Mars. Marla, you started this conversation talking about your mom sitting you down in front of the TV, right, to watch us landing on the moon. Surely, I mean, there's a story about you here, too. And sometimes I get glimpses of this. There must be these moments that you look back on and you think, how did I get from here to there? Or those special moments that really changed your life. And I know I don't get to hear enough about those.
So I would have to say talking about the moon and Mars is more exciting than talking about me, okay? Let's put it out there. But here's the thing, there's a lot of determination in what we do, right? When we look at the challenges, the challenges to go to the moon, the challenge to go to Mars, and we transfer that to us as human beings. We all struggle with something, right? We all have challenges, and we all have, to make sure that there's an internal drive. But we also depend on the system that is around us. That system is what helps us to succeed. That's what we NASA right now, we're going to be successful. It's not just about NASA. It's about the American public understanding what we do and being with us. It's about the industry being with us. It's about our international partners. It's about the collaboration, the partnership. When I look back, I never, in my wildest dream, thought about being in the position I'm at. It's a privilege, it's an honor, and I'm very humble about it. There's just no question about that. But I didn't get here by myself, right? I did it because there was a system out there that was behind me. Some of you probably have heard about my mom and my grandmother. They were kind of the initial drivers in terms of, you can be whatever you want. You don't let people tell you cannot be something, right? And in technology, it's a lot of the same, right? When you start working on an idea, there's people who are going to say, well, that's not going to work. And then some other person say, well, maybe there's something there. Let's work together, right? So I see that it's really, how you collaborate, how you bring others with you, and then what you do once you are in a position that you can help others. So, back to my story, there's challenges, right? Every day is, it's a new day, but there's challenges, there's struggles, but you have to have the determination and the will. You got to have some kind of internal drive that, get you to keep working and reaching out, and some days go, your way. Some other days it just doesn't go your way. But teachers, and for those our students, just please listen to your teachers. It's many years after that, you go back and say, okay, these teachers really, make a difference in my life. I was very fortunate that even when I was in a, small town, that there was not a lot of resources, I have the benefit of having outstanding teachers that really, really work with us and make sure that, math, interest in science, all of that, and really challenge us to the next step. Because again, if that will not happen, I, probably will not be here. Really, those teachers really make the difference. And then after that, obviously, is, you can be whatever you want to be, for all the students here. Sky is the limit. You can be whatever you want to be. You just have to work hard, make sure that it is not about what others think is good for you, but it's where your passion reside, right? When you talk about the space or aeronautics or with all the things that we're doing in both areas, there's a passion around it, right? And there's this level of energy and desire to achieve, but achieve together. So I see a lot of, the NASA mission and probably mission of any organization very similar to what we all as individuals struggle with. We all have challenges, we all depend on someone else, and we also are responsible to make sure that we bring others along. So again, there's a lot of similarities.
I love the way you're talking about challenges, because one of my greatest experiences with NASA is, you talk about risk very openly and very clearly and precisely about risk, and that's got to resonate with, especially when you talk to women working and moving their career ahead in STEM, and I know you're passionate about that, and I know that you carry others as you rise up. But how do you, I've heard some stories about, you've talked about your mom and your grandmother, but I do appreciate how you really are honest about risk in there.
Yes, so it's, risk, that's, get really to my heart, because just yesterday we celebrated the days of remembrance at NASA. So let's don't forget that a lot of life has, a lot of individuals have given their lives for advancing the mission. And yesterday we pause and reflect in that, specific aspect of the risk. It is a risky business. We're in a risky business, right? When we talk about space, when we talk about aeronautics, all those things have a risk. And we felt very strongly that the best way that we can honor that those that have given their life, the ultimate sacrifice, is to continue the advance of, the mission. So when we talk about, for example, the first woman on the moon, right? That is going to be really, it's going to be a source of inspiration for a whole generation, not now, but the ones to come. And it also is going to exemplify that it's not that easy, right? Because it's taking us how many years to get there? So again, talk about the challenge. Sometimes you just have to have the determination, and you have to keep working little by little to achieve that challenge. It doesn't happen overnight, and it takes pretty much a village to get there. We will have the first woman on the moon. We will have the first person of color, and that will be the motivation. That will serve the motivation to inspire everyone to achieve. Because if we can achieve those things, this is kind of the platform to all other things that all other barriers that we have to break. This is only one of many, right? But it's going to be one that is going to rewrite the history books. And we are all for it. We're so excited. Again, the first few months are going to be very critical as we have the first test of you going on, launching for the first time since Apollo. So we're really excited about that and looking forward to what is to come.
You mentioned Apollo, and I know, and you referenced the Sandusky facility. That might have been the last time we got to see each other face to face, because it's rare these days. Renaming the facility in Sandusky, the test facility, it's a big deal, and it's something I think that resonates for all of us in Ohio. The decision to rename that.
Yeah, and it's a testament of the role that Ohio plays, right? We have talked a lot about space. We haven't talked about aeronautics, but the Wright brothers, right? We do have a very rich story, a history with aerospace, especially aviation. So, you mentioned an ATF, or, the Neil Armstrong Test Facility, and that is the place also that we have a very unique facility that is testing, the powertrain, what we call electric propulsion for planes. Make it very simple, right? If some of you, not all of you, but some of you, remember when we started talking about electric cars, it was like, that is going to be a tough sell, right? Electric car, can we get there? Electric cars are part of the things that we have these days. So the same thing is happening with aviation. So we're working on the technologies to make, the planes. First of all, again, we go back to the sustainable, but we also look at, lower emissions. Noise, control the noise. We're looking about, technologies that will allow us for supersonic to be commercially available, meaning we can go from point A to point B in a half of the time. That is huge, right? We also looking at advanced air mobility. Imagine that you can get in the morning and instead of having to jump in your car, you jump in a little plane that is going to take you from point A to point B. Imagine that. And we're working on the technologies to make that happen in terms of using more electric systems for both the subsonic, but also for anything that will get us into the drones and the air taxis. State of Ohio, we're working with the state government. We are working with Ohio State University. We're working with University of Cincinnati. We're working with a number of industry here in the area. Why? Because we need to come together to make sure that we come up with the technologies, we test the technologies, and then we will have an economy that it will be vibrant because it will be about Ohio making a difference. From the manufacturing to the testing to having those devices available to everyone, and we all will benefit from those technologies. Supersonic, we are right now working at NASA Glenn with Lockheed Martin Skunk work because they are fabricating right now, they're in the production of what we call the X-59 technology demo. What is going to happen is we're going to be testing supersonic in a way that we can get data to make sure that we work with U.S. and international regulators to see how we can change some of the standards to make sure that we can fly supersonic. So again, and just flying supersonic is not about it, it's about changing the shape of the plane, doing things on the technology side to reduce what we call the low boom. What we want to make sure is that we reduce the impact in the environment. That is what it was going to allow us to fly supersonic. And again, the economic impact is huge. Yeah. So that's another aspect of what we do. Electric propulsion. Planes, 10, 15, 20 years from now, they're going to look very, very different. Your guess is as good as mine. We have some, drawings that are going out there. They're going to look different. And this generation is the generation that is going to make that difference.
It's so exciting. And I have to say, you keep referencing testing, and you've referenced the newly named Armstrong facility. I don't know that the scale of that, because now it's been years since I've been at the Armstrong facility. It's mostly underground. Every time I'm driving through Sandusky, I feel like I'm about to go off the road because I'm always peering over, right? Because all you see are the lumps, right? And deep underground there are some amazing test facilities. It's stunning, everything that's out there.
Yeah, and it's not just for NASA, right? It's also for industry to do testing. So you have a facility that is the space environmental complex. So instead of having to go different places for a test, you can come to this facility and you can do all these tests that you need to have before you launch. So that was one of the key things that we did for Artemis, the Orion crew. We test and we make sure that it was ready for flight. And then after that, it was transferred then to Kennedy, where it now is connected to SLS and ready for flight, hopefully early spring. And that's going to be our first test that I keep referring to.
And I think it was in the vacuum chamber. I mean, you say make sure it's ready for. Yeah. You say that so quickly, but it involves all these different facilities out there, right?
We have to make sure that the thermal what we call, thermal gradients and things.
Yeah.
All the environment that is going to be seen, the spacecraft is going to see when it's going to be launched. That's what we simulate out there. So electromagnetic waves. So there's no interference between the components. The thermal vacuum, the vibrations. All those things can be accomplished at that facility. And you do not have to go to multiple facilities. You can do it there. We don't do justice when we talk about the facility because, as you said, you really have to see the facility, the size of that facility. And what is always amazing, and Brian and I have a lot of conversation about this, is that these facilities were built many, many, many years ago. I mean, it's just like a matter of genius, engineering genius would put these facilities together. And guess what? They're still standing. They're still making a huge impact in the way that we design things. They're there for a purpose, for us to test, to make sure that it's safe, but also for us to learn and make sure that we make changes to the design or the testing, and we find out if mitigate the risk. As I said, there's a risk. What things we can find out now that we can mitigate or fix before we fly. That's what those facilities are for, to test before we fly.
I mean, it's exciting. If you want to be safer, if you want to be more environmentally sound, you got to come talk to NASA Glenn.
That's right.
It's amazing what you do there. Well, I know that there are a lot of people who want to get in some very specific questions. So let me say that we are now about to begin the audience Q&A. We do welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, students, other guests, or those of you joining us via live stream or the radio broadcast on 90.3 IdeaStream Public Media. If you'd like to tweet a question, please tweet it at the City Club. You can also text your questions to 330-541-5794. That's 330-541-5794. And staff will try to work that into the program. But maybe have the first question, please.
Yes. I've got one here from a text question. It may have been answered a bit in this last bit of the conversation, but in case there's anything to add. What research is NASA Aeronautics performing that'll contribute to the goal of the U.S. becoming net carbon neutral in 2050?
Can you repeat the last part?
Can you repeat that last part? It was about getting to net carbon neutral.
The U.S. goal of becoming net carbon neutral by 2050. So what research is being done to help contribute to that?
So a couple of things. One of the things that we're working on is, electrical systems. So looking at electrifying propulsion, that's one way to reduce the emissions. The other thing is looking at materials that are lightweight. Because if we have lightweight materials, obviously we reduce the amount of thrust that is needed to take off and land. So there's areas in materials and also the power systems that we're working to achieve the reduction and moving more into green technologies.
So as a woman who's interested in going into the science industry, do you think that the misogyny and sexism that women face in the STEM industry has gotten better or worse over the years?
So as I said, it's work in progress, right? And couple of things. The first one is very different than it was when I started. So let's make sure there's more women in engineer. There's a lot of efforts like the NASA partnership with the Visitor Center, making sure that there's an awareness. So that's another thing. The other thing is there's more efforts in terms of being diversity and inclusion in all organizations, because we all realize that creativity and innovation go hand in hand with the diversity and inclusion. So I think that piece by itself is helping, but we still have work to do. And we also have to make sure that it doesn't matter which generation, it doesn't matter if it's female or a male, that we really have to inspire and motivate students to pursue degrees in STEM, because that technology is here to stay. We need technology in everything that we do. So we need to make sure that we do everything we can. But at the same time, we still have work to do. But is moving in the right direction. I would say, I don't know, I would like your input too on this one.
Right, I mean, you've got two people up here very passionate about your question, and the only thing I'd add is to say what helps is standing up at the mic and asking the hard question. So keep asking that.
Okay, I'm assigned with the virtual questions. So we have one here from Twitter. How do you and your colleagues see the recent private sector space efforts from Bezos and Musk?
So as I said before, right, the partnership, the collaboration between industry and federal agencies is key. If we want to achieve these, very big challenges of going back to the moon, then to Mars and beyond, we have to do it together. I think, what we have learned in terms of the collaboration is huge. Our ability to really depend on our partners is also another, big trust to make sure that, we get to that next step. So I would say it is good. Again, by going back to the diversity and inclusion, the diversity of thought, the diversity of technologies, the diversity of options, and the diversity of approach. All of those things make us better every time that we turn around. And that partnership is critical for our success.
What town from Puerto Rico are you from, and what inspired your work in space as a kid?
Okay, the first one I got it, the second part I didn't get it.
What inspired your work in space when you were a child?
So I'm originally from Puerto Rico, as I said before, and I was born in Ponce, but I was raised in Adjuntas, which is a small town in the middle of the island. What motivated me in space, in reality, my passion was math and chemistry. That was the two things that I started with. And then one good day, I decided that I wanted to be a chemical engineer. And one of the things with chemical engineers is that chemical engineers can do a lot of things. They can work in thermal systems, they can work in electrical systems, they can do processes, they can do materials, they can do a lot of things. So I, talking again about the system that you have around you, I have a professor that was doing research and invited me to join the research in the energy area. And when NASA went to Puerto Rico, I was made an offer to come and work for NASA. Now, did I plan to be in space? We all love space. I never dreamed that I was going to get an offer with NASA, so it didn't take me more than 2 seconds to decide, oh yeah, I don't have to look at any other place. I am going with NASA. So again, and that's how I started my career.
I know that NASA Glenn has been working for years on production of a new battery, which is much, much smaller, lighter in size and weight, and yet be able to produce more power. What is the latest? I've heard so many rumors. What is the latest on the production of a new battery?
So, great question. Batteries are key for everything that we do right now. I think, even for all of you, right, if your battery doesn't work and your iPhone doesn't work or your Galaxy or whatever is your phone, we panic, right? So we panic because suddenly I need power. So the new batteries, we still work in lithium-ion batteries. We're looking at some solid-state batteries, but really, talking about batteries, and when we talk about patience and things that take a long period of time, batteries are one of those things that you cannot accelerate the chemistry, because you accelerate chemistry, you're not going to get what you're looking for. So you gotta come out with a design, and the design for a battery that you use on your phone, a design of a battery that you're going to use in space, or a design for a battery that you work in aeronautic. The outcome is the same, right? You want power and storage of the electrical power. The problem is that the requirements requires that you have a different design for those three things. And the way that you test those things are also different. So it takes time. We still work in different aspects. We're always looking for new chemistries because, again, how we can reduce the size and get more power or more energy storage in those batteries is key for our success. So work in progress, that's one of the things that make us so unique, right? Our long history of working in all these, power, propulsion, materials, communication, and obviously I didn't talk about microgravity, but microgravity is key. One thing I will say is that, the microgravity piece is another aspect that we need really to understand and have helped greatly in terms of coming out with how to manage fire in space. It behaves different in space than it does here on Earth, and we have to make sure that we understand that because we will have astronauts that need to know, what are the physics behind how to, mitigate any chance, any risk for fires, but if it happens, how they will make sure that they can extinguish that fire in space. But those technologies also find a way here. Thank you for that question.
Yes, good one.
At Mac Tays, we have trades and CAD engineering is one. What area of engineering should I focus on to get into NASA?
Well, we need all type of engineers. So you just get an engineer now. A couple of things. First of all, when you're looking for the engineer field, find out, what are the disciplines that you are more interested in. For example, I said I was interested in math and chemistry. So again, I look in there, chemical engineer, but that doesn't mean that it's only chemical engineer. Math and chemistry apply for pretty much all kind of engineer, aerospace, mechanical. So it's a question about what is your affinity? Are you more kind of, the numbers? Are you more in terms of, hands-on mechanical system? Are you more interested in like physics? So have a discussion with, your counselors at the school, with your teachers. And if you have an opportunity to talk to other engineers, there's no better way than talk to another engineer because you will have a better feeling for what do you really like. A mechanical engineer can do different things. So it depends on which field this individual is working, is how that concept is going to be applied or that knowledge. So I think talking to others, shadowing an engineer for a day, it will help you a lot to understand, okay, what are the fields that I'm interested in? And in your first year in college, you will have the opportunity to experiment and go into different, classes that will give you a feeling for what that type of engineer will be doing. But as I said, engineering is kind of a foundation. Some engineers don't practice engineering. They go to medicine or they go to law or they just go and open their own business. So again, it's just technology is everywhere, and for me, engineering also get you thinking different. So that's another aspect of engineering, the ability of thinking in a more integrated, different aspect of the problem. So shadow someone, come and shadow someone at Glenn. Seriously, contact us.
Hi there. I have a question from Eric Wobser tuning in from Sandusky. And the question, some of the audience members know him. How can we partner to leverage NASA's presence in Sandusky that builds on the physical facilities, testing capacity, underutilized land adjacent to the Ohio Turnpike and Sandusky's destination status? Think Space Camp or Great Lakes Science Center. That's from
So we continue to work with different partners to find out, how to collaborate, not just in terms of the science and the technologies and the testing, but also in terms of, how we can be better neighbors. So that's one thing that, we work with the community, with General Stringer, and then, Larry Civic, which is here with us today, Associate Director for NASA Glenn. He's also very involved with those activities. But the first step is just, to call us and have a conversation about ideas, thoughts, because that's usually what we do for all the partnership. We just have an exploratory session.
We have another question from our text number, and for the audience members who are listening on the radio, it's 330-541-5794. This question, how are you prepared to deal with cybersecurity issues?
Well, I think we all are working cybersecurity issues. I think it's a work in progress because again, the technology is advancing, and when we work one area, something else come up. New technologies are always being used, and tools, processes, all those things. So I think it's an area that is gonna continue challenging all of us. And the first thing is awareness. The awareness of what our system, making sure that we do have the individuals that have that expertise to do the assessment and look for mitigations. I think that's one thing. We also have, as part of our organization, our culture, is to make sure that we continue educating all of our employees about all technologies, but obviously cybersecurity is another area that we're making an extra effort to make sure we all understand what is our responsibility when we have computers. What our everything, personally and professionally, right? We depend on that, so we could have to have. We have to keep up with the knowledge and understanding cybersecurity and how to mitigate any risk to our data.
All right, I have a question from in the room. So this question is, how can our region support NASA Glenn to ensure that Glenn continues to expand its role, leadership, and budget in the overall NASA organization?
Couple of things. I think one of the things that we are very appreciative, and City Clubs, thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk today. Things like this, the opportunity to, in many ways, create an awareness about our role in the community, our impact and the economic impact that we have in the region, and what are the opportunities to partner with us, what are the opportunities to come with us in this journey. So I think that is by itself a great advocacy for the American public to understand what is our role and how the role that NASA plays really benefits everyone. That is not just about going to space. It's not about having the next big airplane or the faster airplane. It is about the economic impact and how these technologies really find a way to our home and help us to have a better quality of life. So I think I would say that. We also have, within NASA organizations that really take care of, the collaboration, the partnership, the kind of discussions that are needed to make sure that, everyone is up to date and knowledgeable about what you do. Josie is here with us, John Sankovic is here with us, JCP. We have a number of organizations that continue, Jobs Ohio, continue to really, really make sure that our mission is communicated in different ways to the American public. So for that, thank you. Thank you.
What is your favorite part about your job?
Wow, that's a tough question. The people. I'll say the people. I think the people is my favorite part. And the people, because without the people, we would not be able to do the things that we do. There's so many brilliant people, so talented, so knowledgeable. Taking care of the people is the thing that I take, to the next step, because I think they're our biggest asset. And they're going to take care of the capabilities with our facilities, tool, and all of those things. So I think it's like a domino effect.
All right, we have a lot of text questions lined up, so here's the next one. Could you talk about how different centers in NASA compete for projects and the bearing that it has on NASA Glenn's future?
So I think, that there's a couple of things that I would like to say about that. Some competition is good. There's, good competition because, we all get better when we know that we have to really be sharp all the time. When it's not good is when we get in a situation that it gets into toxic or a very negative environment. I will say we're not there. We have made a lot of progress in terms of have more collaboration between the centers. and be in a situation where we depend on each other. And if we have some competition, it's because we want to get better. And in some areas we have even duplications, and that is also a good thing because we need to make sure that we have corporate knowledge that can stand. And that is also a good thing. So I think, I would say a little competition is good. Too much competition is not good. And I think we have made a lot of progress getting away from that negative competition and get more into the collaboration.
I was wondering, what was like one of the hardest things you had to overcome, like getting a job at NASA?
Couple of things, and that's what I paused. So obviously, when I came here to Cleveland, it was the first time that I was living in the States. So the culture is very different. Have to understand what's the culture because it was very different. The language, so that's another thing. And then you're talking about many years. We're not going to say how many, but the other aspect of that is the environment. I think we got the question about women's in science and engineering. There was not that many women when I started NASA. So I mean there was still a little bit of you have to prove yourself, and then a Hispanic woman. So there's still a little bit of that. Let's don't kid ourselves about that. But I think the challenge is that you have to make sure that you always are yourself. Don't try to be someone that you're not. And you just also have to understand what are your weaknesses and what are your strengths. And that's the way that you overcome the challenges. You always have to recognize, hey, I can get better here, or I'm not good at this, but she's really good at that. So guess what? I'm going to partner with her, right? I'm going to make sure that I have, a mentoring relationship or some kind of, way that I can get tips, understand how she approached certain aspects of the job, so that way I become better. So I think, there's some kind of assessment that you have to do about yourself in terms of strengths, weaknesses, and then understand those, see which ones you can improve, and some of these things, take time. But culture, I would say culture and language were the big challenges for me. Not just to come here, because again, they have to make an offer, right? Then I have to come, and I have to find a way to prove my worth to some extent. I think that's on all of us to find that way of, not everything is going your way all the time. Nothing is easy. You're gonna find times that you're gonna have to pause and decide what is the next step that you need to take. But for all of us, there's ups and downs. We just have to make sure that we don't stay down all the time. We got to figure out how to stand up and keep going.
All right, I have a question from one of our members that was texted in to us. With Cleveland set to be in a prime position to observe the total solar eclipse in 2024, what is NASA doing to help raise awareness about this event and astronomy generally and the presence of space technology locally?
Well, we'll work on that. We got to work on that.
The meetings between our organizations for the eclipse have been going for 8 or 9 months. I mean, we are there. Like, this is NASA, Glenn, and Great Lakes. We are so ready for the eclipse. Yep. It's going to be thrilling. It really will.
Looking forward to that. Hey, unique times, right?
Yeah.
Unique time. Gotta take up, advantage of that opportunity. So we're looking for that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be great.
Question.
It will. Well, thank you. This has been tremendous. Today at the City Club, we've been listening to a forum featuring Dr. Marla Pérez-Davis, Director of the NASA Glenn Research Center. It's part of our Local Heroes series in partnership with Citizens Bank and Dominion Energy. We'd also like to thank guests at the tables hosted by the Greater Cleveland Partnership, HX5, Jumpstart Inc., Max Hayes High School, the NASA Glenn Research Center, the Ohio Aerospace Institute, Wycliffe High School, the Young Latino Network, and Zinn Technologies Incorporated. We are happy to have all of you here. Make sure to join the City Club next week. On Wednesday, February 2nd, we will be back at the Happy Dog with John Mitterholzer, Senior Program Officer at the George Gunn Foundation. He'll share his experiences at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Scotland last November. And on Friday, February 4th, we'll be joined by Desmond Meade, Executive Director of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. He will address the battle over the soul of our democracy and how access to the ballot box has become the site of some of the most important legislative conflicts. There are only a few tickets left for this forum. You can purchase them and learn more about other forums at cityclub.org. And that brings us to the end of today's forum. Thank you, Dr. Marla Pérez-Davis. Thank you, members and friends of the City Club. I'm Dr. Kirsten Ellenbogen, and this forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland Incorporated.